Hi, my name is Hanne from Thrive Teams, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can make the upside down homepage from Brian Harris. Brian has been talking a lot about the effect of this homepage on his list building efforts, and some of you have asked us if we could build a template. Well, I'm going to do better. I'm going to show you how exactly you can build it yourself, so that you know the next time when you want to build a landing page that you like, how you can do it from scratch. The first thing that is important if you want to start creating a landing page or sales page or any page that you like is that you look at the page in blocks. So we are going to see what elements are important on the page. Here, the first element is a big section with an image, title, subtitle, and a call to action button that is actually a two-step opt-in form. So these are the most important elements above the fold. Next we have the logos to have some social proof, and then we have another section, so that's the third section, with a 3-column layout and with 3 new buttons that are also two-step opt-in buttons. The fourth section is an article about the author, and at the end we'll find again a call to action. And why this is called an upside down homepage, it is because the menu is all on the bottom of the page. So these are the elements that we want to have on our landing page. Now let's get started. Let me show you how to create this page with Thrive Architect. So first of all, we're going to create a new page on our website. Let's call this the upside down page. Save it as a draft and edit it with Thrive Architect. Now, as you can see, this is just an empty page on our website. So in order to make this a good looking homepage, we will start from a landing page template. Go to page setup, choose a landing page template, and we are actually going to start from a blank landing page template because I want to show you how easy it is to build this from scratch. So let's pick the blank one and choose this template. Now we have a completely blank slate to start working from. So let's set up some of the basic settings. In our page setup, we can go to landing page settings, and from here, first of all, we can decide that this page will cover the whole screen. Next, we will set up our fonts. So first of all, let's go to our heading font. So here I want to choose Roboto. So that's a Google font. Apply, and let's apply this to all the headings. And for the paragraph 2, I want to use Roboto. Now our fonts are set up and we can start with the first background section. The content inside this background section can be 1110. Now we're also going to add padding to this section. So from here, let's add internal padding. And we are going to put the spacing for all the text elements to 0. So you can see in the advanced elements in typography. So if you go to advanced, this might be collapsed. So you can open it up and then set everything to 0. What this does is that it will override your theme settings. So your theme actually gives information about how much spacing there is between text elements. And because we are building this homepage from scratch, we want to make sure that these settings aren't taken. So we can just set this to 0. Now, within this background section, your theme settings will not apply anymore. So when I drag this heading element into the background section, you can see that there is no spacing around it anymore. Now let's select this background section and let's also go to mobile immediately. So let's see on tablet first what happens. So here we have our 20 pixels padding and that seems okay. And actually let's also add the top padding to this background section. So immediately here I will add a 40 padding, top padding, and on the bottom too. So now when we go to tablet, this is what we see, and this looks good. We don't have to change anything. And then when we go to mobile, you can see that 20 padding will probably be too much. So let's put 10 side padding here and do a 20 bottom and a 20 top padding. Now this looks better. Let's go back to our desktop view. So now each time that we copy this background section, all of this will apply. So let's do that now. Let's make some copies. So you can do that here by clicking on this copy button. Now remember, our first section was with the big image. So let's add that now. In the background style, we can choose for image, choose an image, and make sure that you have an image that is at least 1920 pixels wide. And here we have to make sure that in the size, the full size is selected. If not, the picture might be blurry. So insert this in the post. So if here this is set to medium, for example, then you will only load the picture on 300 pixels. It will look bad as a background page. So make sure it's full size. Now we have our picture, and as you can see here, we have some options. So you can decide where the image display is anchored. And let me show you what this does, because this will be very important, especially for our mobile view. So let's simply apply this, and I want to make sure that we can see this image. So in our background section, we'll set the minimum height to something like 500. Let's do 520 pixels. Now let's see what happens with this image on mobile. So if we go to tablet, you can see that the image is set to the side, and then when we go to mobile, we can actually not see this person anymore. So that's not ideal. What we want to do here is change the anchoring for the image. So when we anchor in the middle, and then it will scale down from there. So for this type of image, it's definitely better to anchor in the middle. Now, one more thing that we want to do with this background image is add an overlay over it, because we will want to add text on this image. First of all, let's change the color of this heading. So let's make it white. And we also want the alignment to be in the center and in the middle of this background section. So when we go to the background section, we can choose the vertical position. So this is now in the middle of our background section, and we want our text also to be center aligned. So as you can see, this text is not very readable, so we want a dark overlay on this image. Go back to your background style and pick an overlay, and now we can set the opacity to something like 55, which makes the text very readable and our image also still stands out. So let's apply this. And let's add a subheading. Drag another heading element in here. Make this a heading 2. Now let's change the font color to white. And probably this title we want it to be bigger font. So let's make this bigger font. And I actually want the content to go less white on this page, so I can simply change it here and decide what seems like a good width. So 900 seems better. Now let's also add some margin. The next element that we want in this above the fold section is a button, and that button is gonna trigger a light box. So let's go to our elements and pick a button. Let's make this a dark orange button and save this color as our favorite color. Apply it. Now to style this button a little bit more, we're gonna add a gradient overlay on this button. So this is gonna be a white gradient overlay. So from white 30% to completely transparent. This gives a nice subtle effect to the button, and we want this to be in a 180 angle so that it goes from the top to the bottom of this button. Let's apply this. Now we want a little drop shadow straight down and make this very subtle. So 2 pixels and 2 pixel blur. And for the hover state, we want this to subtly change color. So what we'll do is go to the state here, default, select hover. And instead of having a 30% gradient, we'll put it to 20% opacity and apply. So now when we hover over this button, you can see that it slightly changes colors. It's pretty subtle. Now this button, we wanted to say download the free guide. And the font is also Roboto. Let's give this button a little bit more space. So let's add some top margin. I think this button should be a little bit bigger, so we can see here you have small, medium. So probably medium is better, and then change the width of the button. This is more what I'm looking for. For the moment, this button is not connected to anything, but let's change that. What we want is an opt-in form to show the moment that we click on this button. And for this, you will first have to create the opt-in form. So when you go to your dashboard, you can see that you have something that's called Thrive Lightboxes. This comes together with Thrive Architect. So if you have Thrive Architect installed, you will see this in your dashboard. So in Thrive Lightboxes, you can add a new lightbox, save it as a draft, and edit it with Thrive Architect. And now here you are able to create any opt-in form you like. To make this opt-in form match our page, let's drag a header in here. Let's make sure we're using the same font here. So we want to use Roboto again and add our text. Let's add a little bit more line height and bold this. And now we want an image in here. And we are going to use one of the icon illustrations that you can download for free on the Thrive Themes website. I'll make sure to put a link below this video. So select this one and insert it. Now let's make it a bit smaller. And now next to this image, we want an opt-in form. So for this, let's pick a lead generation element. Drag it next to here, make this a little smaller. And when we edit the form elements, we can edit every detail of this form. So let's start with the button. We want to change the color and use our same color. And here too, we can add our drop shadow and our gradient. So we can really make it the same design as our page. And let's also quickly change the hover state here. Exit state. And now, of course, we want to change this text and say something like download this guide now. And when you're ready, don't forget to connect this form with your email service simply by connecting this button, connect form to service. So from here, you'll be able to connect this lightbox with MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or any email service that you are using. Now let's save this lightbox and publish this Thrive Lightbox page. And now when we go back to our home page, we can click on this button and go to the Actions and Animations menu. So from here you can see that there's a link. This we don't need, but we want to change for open a lightbox. And so here you can see that you can open a Thrive Lightbox, or if you have Thrive Leads installed, you can open a Thrive Leads Thrivebox. So let's click on this. Now we can see the upside down guide, save this, and let's preview this page. So now we have our title, our subtitle, and we have our button that when we click on it, our opt-in form appears. Now, as you might have noticed, the image shows differently on the preview than on this editing page. And that is because I'm not editing in the full width of the page. And this image is set to stretch the full page. So if I collapse this panel, I can see how this would actually look on desktop view. So from here, we can adjust the minimum height of this section if we want to show more of this image. Now the next section on our upside down homepage is really simple. It's just a dark background section. So we'll change the background color of this section to a dark gray. We don't need this title element, but we do need an image in here. And we want this to be our social proof. So these are logos from companies that we have been featured in. I can make this maybe a bit smaller and center line this. And let's also reduce the padding here because we want this section to be narrow. The next section is a 3-column layout with 3 buttons that go to 3 different opt-in forms. So let's select this next section, give it a light gray color, put in our title, center align this title. Now I can put in our column elements, select 3 columns. And what we need in here is a subheading. So this would be a heading 3. Underneath it, we want an illustration image and a paragraph of text. And of course, we want our button in there. So let's just copy this button. Let's select it. Then I keep the Alt key clicked while I'm dragging this button. And this allows to copy the button in here. We want this to be a small button. We have a top margin here. Now let's center align this and this image and this text element. And we want a little bit more spacing between these columns and the title. And now we're simply gonna copy these elements and change them so that we can keep the exact same layout. Remember, you can just hit the Alt key and drag the element and this will make a copy. Because we copied these buttons, each one of these buttons is actually linked to the same lightbox. But that's not the effect you want. What you want is link this to another lightbox. So you go through the exact steps as I showed you in the beginning to create a new lightbox with a new opt-in offer. And then you can click on the button and go to the Animations and Actions menu. And from here, you can simply change which lightbox you open on click. So this means that on one page you can have different lightboxes that open with clicks on different buttons. Now we're almost there with the homepage. The next section is the author section. So we still have a background section here. Let's put our title. And this section we want it to be more narrow than the others. So let's go to our content width for this background section and put this to 800. Center align this text. Give it a bit more line height. And now we want a paragraph in there. Now we also want an author image in there. So drag an image, pick our thumbnail and the text. And now let's make this image a bit smaller. We're gonna make it a round image, so in the style we can make this a circle. And I want this text to float next to the image. So what I'll do on this image is go to the alignment, to the layout and positioning, and then in the advanced settings, again, if you have to collapse this panel, advanced, and then here in float, we will set this to float and the image to be aligned on the left. So this allows this text to float next to the image. Now we can simply add a little bit more margin for this element to be next to it. And here. Now in this section too, we want a button. So let's again just copy the one from on top here. Click Alt and drag it. Put it here on the bottom. And change the top margin a little bit. Make it a little bit smaller. And let's make sure that this is linked to the correct lightbox. So when we click on it in animations and actions, you can see which lightbox is linked. So make sure that this is the right one. And now we need one last element, and that is why we call this page an upside down homepage, because the menu is on the bottom. So here, let's put a background section. Let's make this our dark gray again. Make the content maximum width also 800. And here we want to add a menu element, so custom menu. And the main color should be white. And here, let's select the primary menu. And center align this. And on hover, I actually don't really want this to change, so I'll probably just also pick white on hover. But this, you can choose what you want. Now here in the background section, I will give this a little bit padding so that there's a bit more space above and beneath the menu. But that's it. That is how you build the upside down homepage. Now that we finished this page, what we want to do is check how this looks on tablet and on mobile. Let's switch to tablet mode. As you can see, we want to fix this button a little bit, maybe make it a little bit wider. Here we can actually decide whether we want the columns to still be on one line or not. So if you want to do that, you can wrap the columns or not wrap them. And so this will keep it on 3 lines. Or you can decide to wrap, and then you will have like this 2 column and 1 column underneath. So this is your choice. And of course, if you want, you can add a little bit more spacing. So here we could add some margin, for example. And this section looks good. And here we have our mobile menu. And we can change the menu icon. And then we can check on mobile. So here we might want to make this title a bit smaller, the font size. Same with this subheading. And add some more space between these columns, so add a top margin. And then this is our mobile homepage. Let me show you one last preview. So this is the result. We have our big header image above the fold with a first button that triggers this lightbox. Then we have our social proof, our 3-column layout with 3 buttons that also trigger lightboxes. And so you can have each button trigger a different lightbox so that you can really segment your list from your homepage. Then we have our author section. And lastly, another button for an opt-in form. Now I hope you liked this tutorial, but if you don't want to build this page from scratch yourself, you can simply download this template from the templates library in Thrive Architect and load it on your page so that you can just customize and tweak a little bit to make it fit your message. And of course, if you have any comments, you can leave them below.